Hey, and welcome. Today, we are going to draw a kind of power map for Nigeria. Yeah, we're going to figure out who's really in charge of what. You know, from the big decisions made way up in Abuja, all the way down to the things you see, or don't see, on your own street.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You're stuck in traffic, staring at a pothole the size of a small car, or maybe you're walking past that same pile of rubbish on the corner for the third day in a row. Or, my favorite, you're sitting in the dark. Again, and the first thing you think is, who is supposed to be fixing this? It seems like such a simple question, but trust me, the answer can get really, really complicated.
So what do? That frustration kicks in and we start blaming, well, pretty much everyone, right? The president, the governor, the local chairman. But here's the thing, and this is super important. When we aim our frustration at the wrong person, our complaints just disappear into thin air. Nothing gets done. And it's not your fault. The whole system can be seriously confusing.
But what if I told you there's a map, a kind of rule book? It's right there in the 1999 Constitution, and it lays out this whole power-sharing system that tells us exactly who is supposed to do what. So today, let's figure out how to read this thing.
Okay, the big idea behind this whole map is a concept called federalism. Now don't tune out. I know it sounds like a boring school topic, but it's actually pretty simple. All it means is that you have a big central government, the federal government for the really big national stuff, and then you have smaller state governments that are closer to home, dealing with local issues. The most important part? The Constitution gives real, actual power to both of them.
Think of it this way. One nation, but with multiple layers of government. It's a system that makes a lot of sense for a country as big and diverse as Nigeria, right? I mean, what works in Sokoto might not work in Calabar. One size definitely doesn't fit all, so that power has to be shared.
So, how does the Constitution actually do this? How does it split up all the power? Well, it uses a system that's actually surprisingly simple. The easiest way to picture it is to think of three big buckets, and every single job a government could possibly have gets sorted into one of these three buckets.
Yep, that's it. Just three. Seriously, if you can get your head around these three buckets, you'll basically understand the entire power map of Nigeria. So, come on, let's break them down.
All right, first up we've got bucket number 1. This is called the exclusive list. And the name kind of gives it away, right? These are the jobs that only the federal government in Abuja can do, no one else. The reason is simple. The whole country needs one single consistent rule for these things.
And if you look at what's in this bucket, it makes total sense. We're talking about things like printing the naira, running the military, managing airports, our borders, and dealing with other countries. I mean, can you just imagine the chaos if every state had its own currency or its own army? It would be a total mess. That's why this stuff has to be handled by one central government. Okay, moving on to bucket number 2, this one's called the concurrence list. Concurrence is just a fancy word for happening at the same time. So this is the zone of shared power. This is where both the federal government and the state governments can step in and make laws. And yeah, this is where things can get a little messy. Just look at the examples here. Education, health, and oh boy, especially electricity. Both levels of government have a finger in the pie. The feds might set some big national policy, but it's often the states that have to actually make it happen on the ground. And that overlap? That's exactly where all the confusion and the political fights tend to happen. And finally, we get to bucket number 3. This is for what we call residual matters. Residual is just another way of saying whatever's left over. So picture this. Anything that wasn't specifically put in the federal-only bucket or the shared bucket, well, it automatically falls down into this third bucket. And this one belongs to the states and their local governments.
Now this bucket is all about your daily life. We're talking about the rules for your local market, fixing the roads in your neighborhood, the ones that aren't major highways, chieftaincy matters, and just the day-to-day running of your local government area. These are all things that make sense to be handled by the people who are right there in the community.
Okay, but this brings up a really important question. If both the federal and state governments are making laws in that second bucket, the shared one, what happens when their laws clash? You know, what if a state law says to do one thing, but a federal law says to do the complete opposite? Who has the final say?
So just imagine this. Let's say the federal government makes a law about a national standard for electricity, but then a state comes along and passes its own law that completely goes against the federal one. Who wins that fight?
Well, the Constitution actually has a very clear tiebreaker rule for this. It says that when a valid federal law and a state law are in conflict, the federal law wins. Period. End of story.
In that specific area, federal law is supreme. That's the final word.
Okay, enough theory. That's the boring part over. So how do we actually use all this? Let's take our new power map and apply it to some of those real-world, everyday problems that drive us all crazy.
Here is a super simple 3-step guide to holding the right people accountable. Step 1. Pinpoint the exact issue. What is the problem? Step 2. Ask yourself, which of our 3 buckets does this fall into? Is it exclusive, concurrent, or residual? And step 3. Boom! Your answer to that question points you directly to the right government agency you need to be talking to.
Let's put it to the test. First scenario, there's a major highway that runs through your state, connecting it to other states, and it is just full of potholes. You even see the governor's convoy bouncing along it every single day. So, who's to blame?
Now, your first instinct is probably to blame the governor, right? I mean, the road is in his state. But our power map tells us something different. Major interstate highways, that's bucket number 1. That's on the exclusive list, which means it's the job of the federal government, specifically the Federal Ministry of Works. They are the ones you need to hold accountable for that road.
All right, let's try another one. Something much closer to home. Your local market is just a mess. There's rubbish everywhere, the sanitation is awful. So, should you be writing a letter to the president in Abuja about this?
No way. This is a classic case for bucket number 3. It's a residual matter. That problem falls squarely on the shoulders of your local government council. And remember, the local government is supervised by the state government. So the people you need to be talking to are your local councilor, the council chairman, and maybe even the state's ministry that oversees local governments. And really, this is the whole point. This is what it all comes down to. Look, we can complain from morning till night, but if we're shouting at the wrong person, it's like our voices just get lost in the wind. Knowing this power map isn't just some boring civics lesson. It is the first and honestly, the most powerful step we can take to demand real accountability and actually get better services.
This knowledge, it really does shift the power. It puts it back in your hands. It turns that feeling of just being angry and frustrated into targeted, smart, effective action. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you have the map, now that you know who to ask, what are you going to demand?